One of the problems with kids, which is different from adults, is that kids are growing. And the cancerous drugs that are generally used in adults kill all growing cells. We don't have many cells that are growing in our bodies. But kids are this growing, amazing person. What we do is look for drugs that kill the cancer cells, but don't kill the cells from the skin of children that we call stem cells that are involved in making their nervous system and their bones and their muscle. So we have what we call a toxicity screen. We look for drugs that only kill the cancer cells but leave the normal cells alone. So a cancer stem cell is a cell that can make a copy of itself, the dangerous ones, and make all of the other cells in the tumor which aren't so dangerous. So cancer stem cells are essentially the queens in the hive. And those queens, as long as they stay around forever, there's no way that you're ever going to cure the cancer. Most drugs we think in the clinic are effective against the workers and not the queen. So the goal of almost all of us in the cancer field now is to find those queens and to kill them. One of my postdoctoral fellows, named Lowen Hansford, she's an Australian, came to my lab with that goal of discovering the queen bee. And several years ago, we isolated it, and we found it from patients, whether they were in remission, so whether they had no evidence of cancer, or whether they had relapsed and have a very high cancer load. What Lowen did is she can isolate those cells, and the reason she can isolate them is they form these little clumps in the bone marrow of kids. So all she did was take a filter and took the bone marrow from kids and put it through the filter, and all the nervous system cells and neuroblastoma cells got stuck in the filter, and the blood cells came through. Then we take those cells and put them in a special media that only nervous system stem cells grow in. Queen bee cells. These are cells that pharmaceutical companies and biotechnology companies have never seen, they've never used. They never use these cells. They make drugs against the workers, not the queen bee. In most cancer fields, they use what are called established cell lines. So these are cells that have been isolated from patients many years ago, and they're put in dishes, and we study them over and over again. What happens to those cells is they start to lose their characteristics, their cancer characteristics that were present from the original patient. So genetically, they look quite different, and also they tend to lose their ability to form tumors. So many of the cell lines that we study and that pharmaceutical firms study, only 1 in a million cells may form a tumor in a mouse. So that's a problem if you're looking for new drugs that kill the ability of cancer cells to form tumors. One of the benefits of the way we isolate cells from children is that 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 cells will form a tumor. We think we're testing this now. Almost every cell we think will form a tumor because we have these queen bee cells and these cancer stem cells. So that gives us an advantage of trying to find anti-tumor drugs. If you use all these old cell lines, the chances are you might not find it because they don't really form tumors well. So when we test drugs, we test everything from things that are in our medicine cabinet to herbal green tea extracts, to libraries of drugs from Chinese herbal medicine, to drugs that have been found in organisms that live in deep sea caves. So for us, we don't know where the next drug has come from. It may come from the jungles in Brazil, or it may be something that you've been taking every day for whatever condition it might be. We have to be as unbiased as possible. Since these are new cells and nobody has ever looked to see what drugs will kill them, we can't be biased. We have to test everything we can. So this, to us, is not a one-year project. It might take 10 or 20 years. For the parents and the children's sake, we hope this takes 6 months or 1 year. We might find a drug within that period of time, but we've only tested 5,000 drugs. That's not much. And many of those drugs are old drugs. They're not the new drugs that pharmaceutical companies have. One of the things we're doing with an investigator in San Diego is he has 2.5 million drugs. And so I have sent my scientists to that laboratory where they're testing millions of drugs that include almost all the drugs that major pharmaceutical companies have. So we hope that one that's in clinical trials for something else, maybe a heart condition or maybe some common colds, we'll be able to find that are in their arsenal that'll work well for kids' cancer. We see these kids and we see them all the time. we see little kids dying, and we have to be, our goal is that we can't have another child die of cancer. That's our incentive. It's the kids and also the parents of these children that we're doing it for.